let's talk about the agenda and the impact with Jonathan Pollack. He's a senior fellow for foreign policy at the Brookings Institution Center for East Asia Policy Studies and the John L. Thornton China Center. So, Jonathan, Japan, the first step. What do you make of Trump's Asia trip so far? What kind of tone has he set?
Well, Japan is the easiest stop on his trip, despite his injecting issues related to the trade balance with Japan. The personal relationship that Trump clearly enjoys with Shinzo Abe makes this trip a relatively easy part of his trip. If anything, he has tried to avoid potential inflammatory language. Even on North Korea, frankly, he's been much more restrained. He has reiterated some standard arguments rather than making this a question of something being imminent and immediate action expected. There's also been references in an interview with his National Security Advisor, General McMaster, assuring everyone that all U.S. allies would be consulted fully in advance of any kind of move. So far, he's tried to put the tone of this trip on a lower volume, if you will. But the question is whether it's going to stay that way. I think that the issues with South Korea are much more fraught, and potentially you might have more areas of possible tension with President Moon.
He may not have said anything yet, but he did mention the DPRK there in Japan, saying the end of strategic patience is over. The DPRK also paying attention to what he is saying during this Asia trip. So do you think tensions could escalate depending on what Trump says as he goes country to country?
Well, that's up for President Trump to decide. If he wants to ratchet up the rhetoric, say something that is likely to anger the North Koreans, he can try if he feels that will improve the atmosphere in the trip. But you know, again, 2 weeks is a long time, a lot of stops, a lot of conversations, always the potential for something impromptu happening, something set off camera. What I can't detect yet, at least, is an intention to escalate the level of rhetoric and make that very, very specific. And frankly, even the North Koreans in recent days have been, by North Korean standards, much more restrained. They're reacting, but they're reacting in what I would call very pro forma statements, nothing overly dramatic, nothing high level. The question is whether or not that kind of an atmosphere will persist over the next 2 weeks.
About a minute left. You know, President Trump spoke of a U.S. trade imbalance with Japan. We heard our correspondent discuss what was said. He also brought up China. Is the U.S. president making a trade case for his country? Can he make something happen? This is likely to come up again and again.
Well, I think a lot of this is to play to his domestic audience, but he's got to interact with the countries that he feels, in his own view, take advantage of the United States. I don't see it that way. I see the factors of the trade imbalance with Japan, with China, and with South Korea being a function of much deeper economic factors. But you know, what he's trying to do is to convince the countries involved to make concessions to the United States of one sort or another that might, on the margins, have some kind of an impact on the trade imbalance. But I don't see it as anything that's going to be on a scale that would alter the deeply structural nature of these trade imbalances. But it might be something that he feels he's doing something, he's gaining something. That's kind of the way he often injects issues, and he's trying that one more time on a country-by-country basis.
All right, Jonathan Pollack with the Brookings Institution, thank you.